Good afternoon, runners. Welcome to our TCS New York City Marathon 4 weeks out chat, guys. Marathon season is in the air. I'm very excited for today's chat. And as always, I am Coach Steve to answer all of your training questions here today. Like I said, we have a jam-packed show with some amazing experts to get all your questions answered leading up to the TCS New York City Marathon. Let's bring them up, AJ. We have a good friend from Science and Sports, Professor James Morton. He's the Director of Performance at Solutions at Science and Sports. James, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Nice to see you all. Looking forward to the chat.
And then we also have Mary from Strava. Mary, it's wonderful to see you again. We've known each other for many years, working out in New York City for a long, long time. So thank you for joining the chat today, Mary.
Thanks. Excited to be here and excited to talk more with all these marathoners.
And all runners out there know Coach Ben from New York Road Runners. Always glad to have you on our chat.
Thank you, Steve. Hello, runners. It's exciting times out there. I've seen so much information coming up online already, and some of the marketing materials are already out there. The excitement is in the air. It's crazy to think. October 6th, November 6th, we are like right there. It's close. Good times. Excited to hear all the shout outs, questions. A wonderful panel on here today. Should be a great show, Steve.
Marathon fever. This morning I had my cup of coffee and I had a marathon mug that I used. I'm using a marathon water bottle. This next month is full on marathon for us at New York Road Runners, hopefully for everyone out there. We have a lot to cover today. We're going to talk about your last long run, guys. It's coming up, crucial part of your training. So we're going to cover that. We're going to talk about finding routes for these long runs, how to celebrate your race day, and the proper race day nutrition, which is very key to a successful TCS New York City Marathon. And as always, much, much more. As I said earlier, any questions you have, put those in the comments section because we're going to take those one by one throughout the chat. And as always, I love to know where you are watching from. So whether you are located in the tri-state area, across the nation, or across the world, put that in the chat. Maybe we'll see who's the farthest from the Central Park TCS Marathon finish line, and we'll give a virtual high five to whoever is the farthest from our chat today. But without further ado, I want to start our chat right now. Ben, I want to jump to you. Like I said, we're about 4 weeks out from the marathon. So where should runners be right now with their training? Is there things they should be doing extra now, less they should be doing now? Talk about where they should be.
Yeah, Steve, it's always an important question. I mean, besides, probably freaking out because it's only four weeks away, runners should be calm. Runners should know where they are in their training. Runners should be looking forward to race day as much as you can, being 4 weeks out from the TCS New York City Marathon. They probably have maybe a little bit easier run in terms of the long runs this week. There may be a reduction in the volume of total miles that they're running because they're probably in between some key long runs at this point. So where you should be is kind of laying down those final pieces of your race day, which you hope to do on November 6th. Do you have the clothes you want to wear? Are your shoes broken in or at a point where you're going to be using those so you know how many miles you have on them? Also, most importantly, the fueling strategy that you plan to put in place. This is the key things you want now. You want to have, I'd like to say it's a big jigsaw puzzle, and you want to have all the pieces down as much as you can before you get to race day. That way, when you wake up in the morning or go to bed the night before, everything is out, everything is ready to go. So right now, you should be putting those final pieces in place, thinking about what you want to do and the success you're looking to have on November 6th.
Coach Ben, talk to us about that long run. Usually it's about 3 weeks out for most runners, which is coming up next week. And some might do it this weekend. Some might do a 2-week taper. Kind of everyone's in a different place. It depends a lot. Talk to us what the goals are for that long run and what they should be looking to accomplish in their last long run.
Yeah, as you approach those final long runs, those are the ones where you're looking at trying to, in some ways simulate what you're going to try to do on race day. So, eating and drinking in the time periods or miles that you want to be. So if you plan on drinking, every half hour, every 40 minutes, you're taking your gels at certain times. These long runs should be, as I like to call, a dress rehearsal for race day. So have everything planned out, have enough gels, always take one extra in case you drop one. You don't want to be one short at the end. But again, those final long runs, even if you're doing a shorter run this weekend, they should be a prep for what you're going for at this point. And most importantly, have confidence. It may not go perfectly, it may not go exactly to plan, but that's okay. You're learning things when that happens. So don't look at it as like, oh, if I didn't have success on this long run, I'm not going to have a good race day. it could be quite the contrary, because you may figure some things out. Maybe your pre-run breakfast or pre-run meal wasn't quite what you wanted. Maybe the week before was a bit stressful, didn't quite get the sleep that you're going for. So always look at things that are kind of going towards your long run, and always take the positives for what's going good and learn from things that maybe didn't go quite to plan.
Love that so much. Great advice, Coach Ben. Come over to you and how Strava can help. Ben mentioned kind of those long runs, how important it is. You talk about finding routes for those long runs. I know Strava, I use it all the time, if I'm new to an area. But how do we find good long runs, maybe if we're not from the area or we're just looking to change up our rhythm?
Yeah, totally. So our route feature is one of my favorite things that we use. I use it when I'm traveling all the time in unfamiliar places. It's like, hey, I need a 10-mile route. But I think for our New York marathoners, particularly for folks who are local or for folks who are joining us from places across the world, I just head over to the routes tab or the segments tab and take a look at New York City specific segments. So if you're local, for example, and you want to put together a 15-mile long run that either mimics the course, where 15 miles will get you just about to the Queensboro Bridge. So that's an opportunity to kind of like look at the route and go, okay, well, I could do this part of the course. I could potentially do this segment in my training. For example, if you live in Long Island City, if you live in London and you're coming to do the New York City Marathon, take a look at that segment profile in Strava, and then take a look at what you could potentially do in London that would mimic that. One of the things that I found personally helpful as an athlete is a little bit of course knowledge. So just spending some time looking at the New York City Marathon course profile, looking at the different segments, and then kind of building out your routes around that. I feel like that's really helpful. One of the things that always gets folks with the New York City Marathon is that first mile is actually the biggest hill on the course. And a lot of times people don't like to start their routes with hills. So if you look at that first mile course profile, which is the Verrazano Narrows Bridge in the New York City Marathon, I think it would be a cool opportunity to figure out, okay, how can I get that first mile hill so it's not so intimidating when you're there on Marathon Sunday?
I love that advice so much. Like I said, I've used the route feature when I've been, especially in a different country. I remember in Iceland one time, I was there just family vacation. I had to do a run early in the morning. And I used that route feature to figure out where the most popular place to run in. So I knew it was safe. I knew it was runner friendly. And I can get, an easy run in on vacation. And in the morning, I saw some great sites that I went back to later in the day, with the family afterwards, which is great. So definitely check out that route feature. Mary, also, can you touch on, Strava is really good for helping keep runners accountable and motivated, especially in these final weeks of training. I'd love to talk about kind of how that can help their training and impact the last few weeks here.
Oh, absolutely. So, I mean, we are a global platform of 100 million athletes, and we like to say that community inspires community. And there is no time that you need your community more than the couple of weeks leading into New York City Marathon. You may be struggling with an injury, you may have some fatigue, some delayed onset muscle soreness from long runs, and like getting on platform and seeing what your friends are training for and giving them some kudos and then having them give you kudos back is huge. It can be super motivational. While I was sort of struggling through a last phase of training for a big event this summer, it was really helpful to see what my friends in Europe were doing. Like I would get up in the morning and I just kind of scroll through my feed and it was like, oh, my friend ran this route in Italy, or my friend ran this route in France. And it was like, okay, give them some kudos, some acknowledgement, even if it's just like sometimes you have friends that have really creative run titles or walk or cycle or whatever that is. I feel like that's a way to keep motivated and engaged, especially if you're training for your first marathon or you're training independently outside of a group.
Mary, before we jump to James, I want to ask you just a follow up. Most creative workout titles, race names, what have you seen out there as someone from Strava? Obviously, you've seen a lot of strange titles, interesting, creative titles. Can you remember any of them? Can you share some of them?
Okay, so this probably is very, very specific to the Austin, Texas market. But it was just like, I saw this during South by Southwest and I thought it was amazing. And the title of the run was, "To the guy who just threw the Lime scooter into Town Lake, DM me, please. I want to be your best friend." And it came from a group. It was amazing. It came from a group called the Morning Joes. And if you're familiar with South by Southwest, you know that like there's a lot of Lime scooters, Razor scooters, all that stuff flying around. And somebody from that group just picked up a scooter and hucked it into Town Lake so that all of the other runners could pass. I think that's my favorite one.
Love that so much. I just put like 5-mile long run, but I should feel like I need to step up my creative name game for these and descriptions as well. And maybe I'll make your top 10 list someday. Guys, any questions you have, put those in the chat box. We're going to go to those in a little bit, but I, of course, want to go to James over here from our partners at Science and Sport. James, I'd love to talk to you about SIS and how it can help runners in their long runs and how they can utilize that for race day.
Yeah, sure. Well, Science and Sport actually was a company that was founded in the UK back in 1992. So we've got a 30-year history really of providing evidence-based sport nutrition products for some of the world's best athletes actually, across multiple sports. But our core heritage is really endurance sports like cycling and running. And I guess really for all of the runners who are racing in a few weeks, and you're doing your long runs, as you know, the body's supply of carbohydrate is really limited. It can typically run out within 2 hours of exercise. And so Science and Sport, really, what we bring to the market is evidence-based nutrition products that you can take before exercise to fuel up, but perhaps more importantly, products that you can take during exercise to try and maintain that carbohydrate supply. Because we do know that one of the main reasons why people get tired, why we slow down during exercise, is simply that we run out of fuel. And so if we can maintain a carbohydrate availability during exercise, then we can better maintain our race pace and hopefully maintain our performance and hit our the core goals that we're trying to achieve.
I love that. Now, how do you advise runners to kind of start learning to use SAS? Maybe the training runs, they have a long run coming up, as Ben mentioned. Do we just kind of take it, so as you start a run with water, without water, how do we kind of talk about introducing it to a runner who maybe might be new to the product?
Well, there's probably 2 core product ranges that would be suitable for runners. Science and Sport have Go isotonic gels. And so those gels contain 20 grams of carbohydrates per gel. And that's a single source of carbohydrate. It's maltodextrin only. Now, because they're isotonic, then they don't necessarily have to be taken with water. So you can almost treat your fueling strategy and your hydration strategy separately. But one of the other products that we've launched this year, which is really a real high quality product, is the Beta Fuel range. And so Beta Fuel gels, they actually contain 2 types of carbohydrate, that being maltodextrin and fructose. And they actually contain 40 grams of carbohydrates per gel. And so if you think that your carbohydrate requirements during long exercise, moderate intensity, steady state exercise like the marathon, it could be between 60 to 90 grams of carbohydrates per hour. Then typically we're talking around 2 to 3 gels per hour, depending on your chosen approach. And the optimal way to do that actually is to fuel from the beginning. And that's the biggest mistake that we see that runners make. They leave their fueling until 90 minutes or 2 hours in. And of course, by that stage, you've already depleted some of your carbohydrate stores. So we're constantly trying to tell athletes and runners to fuel from the beginning and get into that habit of fueling every 15 or 20 minutes or so. And if you do that, for sure, you're giving yourself the best chance to succeed.
I love that. Really, really good advice, guys. So work on that fueling. And we will have Science and Sport gels out there on the TCS New York City Marathon course at mile 12 and 18, so you can grab those along the course. But of course, the best part of the show is coming up, guys. Here are your shout outs and questions. All right, we got some great shout outs from all across the world. Let's start with those. We got Lee coming in from the UK. We got, I think it's Gregor from Poland. We got David from Ireland, Otto from Beacon, New York. I think Otto, you've watched many times here, especially on the last TCS New York City Marathon coaches chat. So thank you so much for joining again, Otto. We got Ike from Senegal. That might be the farthest one today. Charlotte from New York. And we'll close out shout outs right now with Debbie from Arkansas. Thank you guys so much for joining today and your shout outs. And then we got some great questions. Let's see what the first question is. AJ, pop it up on screen here. All right, we got Daniel asking, just in London on Sunday, how much rest and recovery should I be doing? And when should I restart running and what long one should I do? First off, congrats on London. Ben, I'll let you take this. I also would love to grab James, maybe from a nutrition standpoint, on how they can get back to running from a nutritional standpoint. So Ben, kind of talk about the running aspect here.
Yeah, as Steve said, Daniel, congratulations on London. Like a fabulous day out there. Right now, rest is your friend, especially if you're going to be coming back out. I'm not sure if you're doing the New York City marathon as well, but if you have another race in your future, something to keep mindful of. But the key is it's usually 1 day of rest per mile, 1 day of rest per mile raced. So if you did if you did the marathon, the short math is about 26 or 27 days. Most people do about a month of recovery. Now, does the recovery mean you're not running during that time? No, but that first week after the race, definitely be kind to yourself. Take time off. You've really asked your body to do a lot in this race, so you should be taking care of it because you want to be able to recover, and your body will make gains in that recovery. So take the time for yourself. Come on back. No need to jump back into training. No need to get back out to running anytime soon. Somewhere within that second week, you could probably start some light jogging or light running at that point. I would advise, nothing too long. Maybe no more than a half hour or 40 minutes on your feet at the max for the time you're going to be out there per run. Stay away from speed work as the muscles are still recovering at that point. And then in that third week, you'll probably be feeling a little more fresh. You're giving yourself time to recover. You probably got some more sleep, hopefully done the repair and rest as you need. So in that third week, maybe look, kind of increasing the intensity a little bit, not a lot. Don't get back onto a training plan just yet. Give yourself at least a good solid 3 weeks of time to recover. And then beyond that, just kind of listen to your body, listen to what it's saying. Some people may feel really good within that first 10 days. Most people do, but again, take it easy. No reason to jump back into training. You've done a fantastic day here in London. So you want to have more of those in your future.
Love it. James, from a nutrition standpoint, are there things that Daniel here should maybe be adding to his diet to kind of help that recovery a little bit faster? Oh, I'm not sure if I can hear. Hold up, Daniel. I'm not sure if I can hear you. I don't know if it's our end or your end.
I was just saying that I'm pretty sure that Daniel has some sore muscles at the minute after running London. And unfortunately, as Ben has just said, it can take 7 to 2 weeks for those muscles to recover. One of the key things really is actually increasing your protein intake. So normally we would advise at least 2 grams of protein per kilogram body mass. So if you're a 75 kilo runner, that's at least 150 grams of protein per day. And we would spread that out over even time periods. So as a rule of thumb, generally consume protein every 3 hours. And that should be pretty standard dietary advice. But again, a lot of it is sleep. A lot of it is managing load. A lot of it's consuming carbohydrates to replenish those glycogen stores. But it's real sound nutritional principles. But I do think that endurance athletes probably do underconsume protein in the diet. And now is the time to actually make sure that you really are consuming those high protein intakes.
James, does Science and Sport have any pre-race, after a long run recovery, supplements that they can take just to kind of help in that recovery?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we have a Rego product, which is basically a mix of maltodextrin and protein. So that's a recovery drink that you can consume after training and after long runs. So definitely consume those. And you can use that as part of your recovery strategy now each day. Actually, you could use that between meals to try and increase your protein intake and also to increase your carbohydrate intake.
Love it. Really good advice. And great question, Daniel. Congrats on your race. Let's see what's coming up next here. Next question. Brad says, as far as Strava routes go, most that I find fail to account for the elevation from the bridges. How do I account for one bridge? Mary, obviously jumping to you here. How do we factor in bridges and elevation from Strava?
So I think the easiest way here would just be to look at those segments. So for example, if you look on Strava now, you're gonna probably find 10 or 15 different segments that have Queensboro Bridge in the title somewhere. So if you take a look at the elevation profile of the segment, it's actually going to give you pretty detailed information as to how much elevation gain you have there. And I think actually just looking at the segments rather than looking at an individual route is probably going to be the best way to go. Overall, the New York City Marathon course gains about 1,000 feet And again, the first mile is the biggest climb of the whole race. But just kind of like looking at the specific segments, and the biggest hills really are the bridges. One other thing I would add, do not sleep on the Fifth Avenue mile hill. Nobody thinks about it, but basically from 110th Street up to 89th Street, you are going slightly uphill. So I would look at the segments for more specific data on the elevation gain.
Everyone always asks me what's the hardest part of the TCS New York City Marathon course, and that part of the course is the hardest, I think, by far. If you're in town, also, a lot of runners do the last 10 miles before the race, start on like First Avenue and 60th Street, and you last 10, so you get used to what that hill feels like. It's not going to be as hard because you're obviously starting more fresh, but that hill, do not sleep on that, as Mary said. All right, next question. Jump over to, I think it's from John. John asks, when should I stop lifting weights? Push, pull, leg splits. Is it a similar in tapering that should reduce volume but not a full stop? Ben, let's jump to you. What do you think about John's question about stopping weights and body weights and everything?
Yeah, again, I mean, you have to manage the load. I mean, that's one thing you have to think about the host here. I mean, a good weightlifting session could be as hard as a speed workout or a long run. And so during your taper, you're trying to let your body recover. You want to be in prime peak performance when you get to the start line. So again, I would say just take it easy. Extra rest at this point is really what you're going for. Like it's been shared on the chat already. You don't want to deplete what you have. During that taper period, you're trying to build and get some more storage within your body. Doing something that's going to be taxing on the body will reduce or deplete a little bit of that. Again, the goal is November 6th. That's what you want to do. You want to have a good opportunity to run the race that you've trained for. So anything that you do, especially within those last like 10 days to a week prior to the race, without a full stop, I would just keep it very light, keep it very easy. If you do maybe do a weight session, maybe that would be a supplement for an actual run instead. Or if you do a run, make it very easy just to kind of get the blood flowing before you do an easy kind of weight routine at that point. But the key here is just take care of yourself. You want to get to the start line in Staten Island as you cross the Verrazano Bridge, having a good time, not thinking that was a last couple of squats you did or leg work and be like, wow, maybe I should have taken it a bit easy. So just kind of leave that out. You can get back to that sometime in November and get rocking again.
Love it. Ben, let's stay on you here for a second. We got another question popping up on the screen here. We got Gregor. It says, how fast should my final long run be? Marathon pace, slower, faster? Kind of talk about pacing in the long run, Ben.
Yeah, again, your long run in general should be slower than marathon pace. It should be somewhere between 30 seconds to a minute slower than what you're going for on race day, especially these final long runs, because it could be in the neighborhood of 3 hours and 15 minutes you run by time. It could be in the neighborhood of 18 to 22 miles. So trying to do that at marathon pace, now you're thinking about recovery after that run when you're done. Now, with that said, within your final long run, you can play with marathon pace. So so let's say for a rule of thumb, you're running by time, you're running for 3 hours. Maybe the first hour or so you're going to be running at your long run pace. Then maybe for a half hour or 40 minutes, you pick up the pace to where you want to be on marathon day, and then come back down for a half hour or so, and then maybe finish up the run closer to the pace you want to run at the marathon, and maybe the last 15, 20 minutes, kind of shake it out, bring it back down to your long run pace. So there are ways to incorporate some marathon pace miles within your long run. I would just shy away from making it the entire run, because again, there is fatigue, there is a depletion of the stores you have, just all the small little tears and hustles that you're doing as an endurance athlete. Save those for November 6th. Make that long run a good one, a solid one. But if you want to kind of play around with the marathon pace, you can drop in a few spots here or there. Just shy away from the whole run.
Great answer and tons of great questions, guys. We have more questions coming up and shout outs. Please keep adding them in there. We're going to come back to those in a second. I do really, because there a lot of questions are concerned about race day. So I want to tackle that here as we're, like I said, 4 weeks out from the race. So as we get closer and closer to race day, runners are starting to plan and ask very important questions. So I really want to take some time to ask about how to prepare for the 26.2 miles and finish with a smile. So Ben, we have touched on this a little bit, but I want to dive deep into it. How do we set runners up for success? Looking to last weeks of training. So maybe that week of the sleep, expo, shakeout runs. What should we focus on and what's kind of not as important as maybe other people think it may be?
Yeah, I mean, and sleep is top of the mark there, folks. As your last week of your taper time, you should be getting off your feet as much as you can. Also, take care of the things that you can take. You can do your meetups. If your family's going to meet you somewhere, try to get some pieces in place to kind of put those things out of your mind. You're going to have enough things to think about and concentrate on. You don't want to have to be juggling. Is my mom flying in here? Where is my uncle going to stay? At what hotel or Airbnb? Get those things sorted out well in advance of that final week. Everyone will be selecting their expo time, so you'll know when to be at the expo. Enjoy the expo. The expo is a fantastic time. The New Balance booth will have all the gear, so plan to be on your feet for a little bit of time that day. So maybe use that as your time to kind of be on your feet, so that when you get back to your hotel or wherever you're staying, you can get off of your feet. But again, try to get those pieces in place prior to. But most important, just take care of yourself and get some extra rest. At that point, as we always like to say, the hay is in the barn. There's nothing that you can do that's going to help you on race day. You got to be careful you don't add some things that maybe don't give you the best advantage on race day that you're going for. We just kind of try to knock all the things you out. Some people who are big on checklists, start working on that checklist. A little bit. Make sure you have the clothes you want to wear. You make sure you have your nutrition if you use. And make sure you grab some of that, have it ready. Always have a few extra. Have all those things ready to go, and just kind of check off the boxes as you go, because you don't want to forget anything. Think about if you're going to the start line. If you have throwaway clothes, you've got what you need there. If you're hooking up with friends, just try to get all those things kind of dialed in, because there's enough to worry about as you get closer and closer to November 6th.
Sounds like a control what you can control kind of motto here. Control what you can control and ignore those things you can't control. I love it. Ben, one last thing for you here, which I think is very important. Mental games, and we play with ourselves. I do it all the time, getting up to a goal race. I sometimes question, that race morning, did I do enough? Did I do too much? Is my pacing actually what I think it should be? I question a lot of what I'm doing. I would love to touch on that and how we can kind of stay calm before that cannon goes off on the Verrazano Bridge.
I mean, if you found the answer to that, Steve, let me know what it is, really, because it is, and the cannon goes off, it's always exciting. But really, runners, prior to that, you'll hear a lot of chatter of runners, around you saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to go here, I'm going to go there. The thing is, as I talked about before, having your race plan in place, when you're going to eat, when you're going to drink, what you're going to do, that should all be decided during these last few training runs that you're doing. So that when you get to your start corral, you've got that bib on, you're in, blue, green, orange wave, whatever letter you're supposed to be in, it's all there. That will be calming in itself, because now you know what you want to do and stick to it. It is so easy to get out there and say, oh, I'm at the 30-minute mark, or I'm at mile 4. I feel great. I don't want nutrition. I don't think I need nutrition. As was stated earlier by James, no, you got to stay on your mark, because after you deplete, there's no coming back from that. So you want to be on top of it. If you feel great, that means great. That means your body's efficiently using what you want, and you want to keep adding to that, so that throughout the race, you have that late. The last thing you want to do is be going up First Avenue, maybe coming to the Bronx. We touched on Fifth Avenue, and the wheels begin to come off, because early in the race, you got away with what you wanted to do. So when you're in the corral, do what you do. You know what you want to do. Stick to it. Be confident in what you do. Keep everything positive. You can do this. It's hard, but you can do it. You'll do amazing things on that day. Trust what you do. And before you know it, the cannon will go off. Like Steve said, you'll hear Frank sing, boom, you're off. And then we'll be waiting for you in Central Park at the finish line.
At the finish line is right. Mary, let's jump over to you. So Strava does provide a lot of data for runners after the race. Can you talk about what is available for runners and how it can help them maybe on the next race, or looking at this upcoming New York City Marathon, how maybe their past training can help them set them up for a successful race day?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a ton of different features depending on what level whether you're on the platform for free or you're a subscriber rather. So basically, like if you're on the free side of the platform, you can always look at previous activities. You can look at any data that pulls in from any wearables or head units. So you can review if your Garmin is sending in your heart rate data. You can look at your heart rate data. I'm somebody that trains by heart rate, so that's something that I use pretty frequently. And I actually pulled up my previous New York City Marathon data from 2019, and I can actually look at my heart rate data and see where there were like lots of spectators on the course, because my heart rate peaked and my pace peaked at the same time. But you can overall, like you can analyze your race, you can look at your pace distribution over segments of the race. Like I said, I use heart rate quite a bit because I feel like that's a really great measure. I have a tendency as an ultra runner to actually run probably a little too conservatively in the early part of the race. So looking at this data is super helpful for a sort of like a post race, like, okay, what worked, what didn't work, what do I want to change for next time? And I think to call back to a previous question, like if you're struggling with your motivation or you're nervous, go back and look at your data from really hard workouts. Like everyone seems to have like a checkpoint workout that they just felt like they nailed, whether that was a tune-up half marathon, whether that was a fast 10K, maybe that was a really hard hill session. And I would encourage folks to go back and look at that data and just have the confidence to step up, like Coach Ben said, to race day and just execute. Like, you know, the plan, you have the ability, and just get out there and execute. And then afterwards, you know, share it out, get some kudos, give a lot of kudos to your fellow marathoners. But yeah, just take that data and use it to inform the future. And if you need some motivation, look at past data from hard efforts, and that'll kind of bolster you. That'll help push you through.
Let's talk about that, Mary. You finished the TCS NYC Marathon. You add photos. You can add all this stuff afterwards to kind of show your excitement about the race. Can you kind of dive deep more into kind of that after the marathon and the celebration of Strava afterwards?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm very pleased to share for folks who might be unfamiliar that we now have video on our platform. So folks can upload as many 30-second clips to their activities as they like. So if you really want to capture, let's say, 5 different miles along the course, like, you know, here's the turn by the Brooklyn Academy of Music at mile 8. Here's the Queensboro Bridge. I would advocate that you do the section of the Queensboro Bridge coming down the hill and not up. The Harlem Run cheer zone at mile 22. Like, it really is a terrific way to memorialize your accomplishment and also to share that with your friends, your family, and to kind of get a better perspective of how the global community comes together to race. This is the first year we're back at 55,000 people, and I'm super excited to see 55,000 uploads and different perspectives and experience the race through the eyes of all of our friends that are coming back to New York this year.
I do love that video feature. I've seen 1 or 2 runners start adding videos to their run. Sometimes it's an easy training run and just kind of talking about it. And I love it. It kind of takes it to the next level because you can see their excitement after the run or race and not just the copy, which is great to see with creative names. But sometimes that finish line video is really powerful to see from some of your best friends, or sometimes elite athletes are on there too, which giving those videos afterwards, which is cool to see. So thank you to your team for adding those videos. I want to jump to James, guys, and then we have so many questions from you guys, but James, very important, very important. We want to go over nutrition for the race. So how should runners start planning now for the race day nutrition?
Well, hopefully they've already started planning for the race day nutrition, and hopefully they've already practiced some of those strategies. But for sure, pick the run that is going to closely resemble your race day, and then practice your nutritional strategy in detail. Now, the important thing to remember is, of course, that your nutrition for race day starts the day before. So actually record what you're eating the day before. That's when you're loading up on your glycogen stores, sometimes even 2 or 3 days before, to be honest. And then, of course, it's your pre-race meal, and then what you do during exercise itself. So think of your marathon race day strategy as a 3 or 4 day protocol. And if you haven't practiced that already, then now is the time to really practice it. And keep a record, refine it, practice it, reflect on it, keep as much detail as you can, and then tweak it in the limited time scale that we have available left.
Love it. James, what are some of the mistakes you see runners make in their nutrition? Obviously, you practice it over and over and over, but are there common?
Well, I think we've already mentioned it numerous times, really. It's trying new things on race day before you practice them. But more importantly, and I think this will make the biggest difference to runners' performance actually, is don't leave it too late until you fuel during the event itself. So make sure that you really are fueling from the beginning and fueling every 20 minutes so that you don't underfuel. And if you do that, you'll give yourself the best chance of fueling well during the event.
I love that. I think it's worth repeating, like you said, nothing new in race day over and over and over. As this coach has mentioned that with nutrition, with your shoes, with your clothing, with as Ben said, control what you can control. So definitely very important and worth kind of repeating to runners out there. Nothing new with nutrition out there is a common mistake we see. All right, let's jump over to the runners' questions and shout outs. All right, from Florida, we have Matt joining us from Orlando. Thank you, Matt. Named Slammin23, watch from Illinois. Heading out soon. I'm from Illinois. Thanks for joining. We have Joan says, hey guys, once again from Ireland. Looking forward to my 10th TCS New York City Marathon. We have Pam from St. Louis. We have Dub from San Antonio, 1 month out. Rob from Germany. Thanks for joining us. Lexus says good luck everyone from New York City. Sorry about that. Jessica from Tampa, Florida. Hope you guys are doing well over there in Tampa and the rest of Florida. Edwin from Amsterdam. We have Elizabeth from Westchester County here. Shout out. She says SIS gels are awesome. Enjoying this program. Thank you, Elizabeth. And Brian from Scotland. Doing my first major marathon in New York and first trip to the USA. Thank you, Brian. Hope to meet you and everyone else at the expo leading up to the TCS New York City Marathon. All right, let's jump over to some great questions. I've seen you guys posted in here, a lot of questions. So everyone on this, James, Mary, and Ben, we have a lot of questions, so I want to try to get through as many as we can. So first question here, jump over to you, Ben. What is the best way to use this weekend's NYRR Staten Island half if you are racing the TCS New York City Marathon?
This is a great opportunity to kind of use it as a race prep, whether it's just getting prepared for the day, making sure you have all of your stuff out, making sure that you're fueling the way you want to on race day. James touched on that log about eating what you're going to eat, all that stuff. This could be a chance to kind of put that into place a little bit. Again, trying to lay down that puzzle piece a little bit more. At the race itself, maybe you can use this as a chance to work well on that marathon pace. The NYRR pace team will be out there, so be able to kind of jump in with that crew. If they're in one of your corrals, and you'll be able to run maybe at marathon pace for a little while, have a good time. SIS gels will be on course, all the good stuff. So it's really a good opportunity to kind of simulate a little bit of what race day may be like to kind of get ready for the big day.
All right, love it. Jump to the next one. I'll just kind of knock this next one out here from, I believe, some Beth. If we can pop that up on screen here. Beth, what is considered normal pain at this stage in the game? Now, we don't have anyone from our great partners at HSS here, but from a coaching standpoint, I'm sure all the panelists would agree here. No pain. You don't want any pain. There's no such thing as normal pain. Avoid pain. Slight discomfort and soreness for some new runners who are kind of not used to this type of mileage. Somewhat normal, but no pain. You don't want any pain right now. If you are feeling pain, you want to take some days off. If it exceeds a few days, like 3-4 days, go see your doctor or a physical therapist to figure out what is causing that pain. All right, I want to jump over to this next question. What do we got? Charlotte, I believe it is. AJ, I'm testing. AJ, I'm going fast here. Charlotte says, what should my strength training look like? Ben, we talked about strength training a little bit, about how to pull it back marathon week. We talked about maybe what an average runners for the marathon looks like right now with about 4 or 5 weeks left.
Yeah, I mean, if it's incorporating as part of your workout, usually maybe after one of your speed days, you want to make sure that you're incorporating maybe some body resistance work afterward. It shouldn't be anything too crazy. Again, because sometimes those strength workouts can be just as hard as a workout day. So if you're going to be incorporating strength, and maybe do it at the end of one of your other workouts or runs, body resistance is good. If you're having some squats, a lunge or a lunge matrix, maybe some planks, some sit-ups, whatever the case may be. There's lots of different things out there. You don't have to go to the gym. Even resistance bands can be a great tool. So yeah, would you look at that? Again, it should be in addition to what you're trying to do, but not overtaxing the body, because again, you're kind of in that important time of your training where you want to have some recovery to get ready for those key long runs and workouts. But I know that just adding some basic, some really nice, body resistance work can be really good to keep the body strong. And that obviously will help with injury prevention, which is always a nice thing to incorporate, because none of us want to be hurt ever.
No one wants to be hurt. I love that. All right, next question. What do we got? Matt, what type of flavors of Science and Sport gels would be on the course? James, are you familiar with what will be on the course this year?
To be honest, I'm not actually sure what flavors will be there, but I think it'll be all of the usual ones, which will be very easy palatable. So things like orange and apple and blackcurrant and so on. And they're all pretty much staple flavors that we've had good feedback from all of our athletes.
Love it. Yeah, I got, they're all great flavors. I got some notes from behind the scenes here. I was testing you, James. I'm just kidding. On the course this year, we'll have a raspberry, salted strawberry, berry, and berry is caffeinated, apple, and pineapple. With that, James, I'd like to talk a bit about this. The caffeinated ones, which on the course we're going to have, as I said, berry. If you're not used to taking coffee, how does caffeine affect your body? Similar to a cup of coffee, or is it a little different? Maybe I'm not sure. So.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So the best way to take the caffeine gels is towards the end of the run. So, when you're starting to really feel the pressure and feel the pain, you think you've got about 60 minutes left in your run. Take it about 15 or 20 minutes before you want to achieve that desired performance effect. And it will just give you a little bit of a mental pickup and a mental boost. It will hopefully make the exercise feel easier than what it did before. And then hopefully it makes you finish strong. And you can take 2 of those caffeine gels in a row.
I love that. I like that idea of taking them to the end after never done before. All right. Next one we got coming in here. Elizabeth asks, I love the Strava badges as they keep me motivated. My only concern is that the suggested routes often give places that I wouldn't want to run alone. Give us some safety tips. Mary, talk about kind of those Strava badges and some routes, safety tips for runners out there using Strava.
Sure, absolutely. And there's actually a couple of things I want to, first of all, thanks, Elizabeth. And second, I want to address this question in 2 parts. So the first, we recognize that there's always improvements to be made when it comes to mapping. So we really keep a very close ear to the ground when folks tell us hey, maybe this route wasn't safe. So if there's suggestions or things that they're noticing, I would encourage folks to connect with us online via app and just let us know, hey, this route was, it looked like it was on a bike path, but it was actually on the side of a highway. And then we can work to kind of improve and refine things as we go along. One of the things that I found super duper helpful when I'm planning routes is actually to look at a route and look at the heat map at the same time. So our Strava heat maps are a global map of literally millions and millions and millions of miles traveled. And I found this particularly helpful. So if I'm looking at a route and then I'm looking at the heat map and I see that the heat map is kind of dark, there's not a lot of traffic on that particular route, I will mess with the route a little bit until the route actually lines up with the brighter colors on the heat map. And for folks who may be unfamiliar, the heat map basically shows from colors from a dark burnt umber to a bright white, how pedestrian traffic looks. So if you look at our Strava heat map of Central Park, you'll find that the Ted Corbett loop is glowing white. So I like to use the heat map as kind of a double check on our routes. Again, please reach out to us if there's something that you've encountered that you're hey, I just need to let folks know about this. It's no secret that runner safety is absolutely paramount, especially given some really tragic incidents over the course of the last 6 to 8 months. I would just encourage folks to be aware of their surroundings, to let folks know where they're going. We have a Strava beacon feature, which is free to everybody on platform. I would encourage folks to use the beacon to let folks know where they're going and when they're going to be back. I've used the beacon feature myself. Unfortunately, had a run in Arizona that didn't quite end the way that I would have liked. And the Strava beacon feature was enormously helpful to me. And one of the things that I also encourage folks to think about is to maybe engage a little bit more with our clubs and our challenges and try to connect with folks locally to see if there's other folks hey, are you doing the Pride 5K challenge too? Let's get together and go for a run as much as possible. Having been a runner here in New York City for the last 20 years, I share a lot of Elizabeth's concerns. And I would just encourage folks to connect as much as possible on platform and then to use some of our safety features.
Yeah, I love that, Mary. Thank you so much. Especially the beacon feature. I use myself almost for most of my long runs, even with people not, you just never know what's going to happen out there. I also do use, I think you have a setting where you can hide start finishes or things around your house location so people can't see kind of where you're starting and finishing, which I think is a great tool. So you can see your route, but cross out the last fourth or half mile, whatever you prefer. And that's something I use just as a preset, which I love for safety features. So really good. So I think Strava is doing wonderful things with safety, but as Mary said, love feedback and anything you guys can help with safety features, let them know. They are open ears as Mary uses the safety features out there herself. Let's go to the next question here we have coming in, I think from GC. How do you know what your limit is if this is your first marathon? The art of choosing the right pace. Is it race prediction tools, previous race and runs, gut? Thank you. Ben, let's go to you for this one. How do runners find out what that marathon pace is, especially with that crucial last long run coming up?
Yeah, I'm sure during the course of their training, they probably figured some things out. At this point, you probably kind of know what your long run pace is. Obviously, using a previous race as a rule of thumb is great, especially if it's in that half marathon range, and it kind of gives you an idea of what that pace is. And then, there are race predictor tools out there. There are some different tools you can go online and say, okay, if I ran, half marathon at 2 hours, what would a potential marathon time look like? Sometimes easy rule of thumb is you double your half marathon time and add 15 or 20 minutes, but that's a rule of thumb. It's not the black and white for everybody out there. But really, when you're looking at, like, if you haven't run any of those before or not really sure, your long run pace should be about 45 seconds to a minute slower than what you want to run in a marathon. And what does that look like if you're not really sure? It means, can you talk comfortably during the entire time of your long run? If you're not able to talk to the person next to you, if you run with somebody, or if you talk to yourself, I've done that before. I live in New York. It's fine. No one will look at me any differently here. Have a conversation. That's really what your long, slow distance will be, and that's what you're using for your long runs. And then from there, you can kind of figure out, okay, if I can maintain a 9 or 10 minute mile for my long distance runs, and maybe potentially for my marathon pace, I can do maybe 45 seconds or so faster than that. But again, it's a rule of thumb to work with. If you look at some of the predictors out there, some of the trainings, if you have a coach, I know we have a great tool with Run Coach. There are virtual online. Those coach will help you kind of look at some things as well. So maybe look into that. But I think at this point of the training where you are, kind of look at either a previous race, run that through a race predictor to kind of give you a potential roadmap that's out there. And then obviously look at what your long runs have been, making sure that you're comfortable, you're able to talk. When you're done, you're not totally cooked, your hands are on your knees and you're totally done. You should be able to continue running for a mile or 10 or 15 minutes longer if you had to. What those long runs mean that you haven't totally tapped the body out.
Love it. Really good response there. Let's go to the next one. We have coming in from Ricardo. Hi, from Brazil. I ran it 3 times, and it is the most emotional marathon ever. Please tell us about the First Avenue entrance hill for those of us who are first time. Mary, you brought it up, so I'd like to first hear from Mary about, as a runner, kind of what that experience is like, because it's not a bridge, it's kind of an unknown hill. And then Ben, I'll let you kind of talk about the coaching and the proper ways kind of crest that hill. So Mary, what are your thoughts?
Well, so it really starts just as you're exiting the Queensboro Bridge. And I would encourage Ricardo to think about this. You're going to go from very quiet, focused space. It's a little dark on that side of the Queensboro, and you're going to turn left into the light. And all of a sudden, there's going to be more people on that corner than you ever thought could possibly fit on a single corner. It was extremely emotional last year to be back in the city and racing. And it's just outstanding. So you're going to have this super tight corner with all of these people, and you think, man, there couldn't possibly be any more people. And then you go actually underneath the Queensboro, just the little tunnel, and then you can see all the way up First Avenue because it's a very gradual hill, and it's just a sea of humanity. And one of the great sights. It's videos and photo don't do it justice. Everybody's yelling, everybody's cheering. There's usually a drum line. The gals from Fogo Azul are usually somewhere right around there. There's music. It's just absolutely incredible. It's so motivational. I will tell you, it's very easy to go too fast up First Avenue because of the overwhelming nature of it. But just know that you're going to go from like a very quiet, introspective moment into the sunlight and into, I'm not a professional athlete, but I would expect that like running into a football stadium as a professional athlete, like this is kind of what the experience will be like for you.
And Ben, let's talk about the coaching aspect of that. Getting up that hill is a climb. It takes mental strength. It takes a little bit of, will from wherever you get that spirit of your training from. But talk about getting up that hill.
Yeah, Mary touched on it. Just the amount of emotion you're going to have. It's easy to get sucked into the moment, as I say, because all of a sudden you may find yourself all of a sudden your pace could drop or get quicker by 30 or 45 seconds and you won't even know it. So from a coaching element here, you just need to stay in the moment, stay focused on what you're doing. Again, your fueling plan is so key here because you're in the last 10 miles. I mean, you're getting into the single digits as you make your way up first. So you can kind of begin to sense the end is somewhat near, but you still have a lot of work to do. First Avenue will definitely figure out if you've done those first several miles, I won't say right, but have put the right pieces in place to kind of give you a day, especially as you approach the now 18 and 19 mile markers before you head over into the Bronx. Really, I like to say as a coach, stay in the moment here. You still have work to do. You have one up first, go through the Bronx. Keep everything kind of contained. Just kind of stay in the moment, enjoy it. Trust me, it is a beautiful time, as Mary was talking about. But don't start to drop the pace. But I'm going to go for it here because then before you know, you hit the Bronx and Fifth Avenue on the other side of Manhattan, and you're just kind of like the wheels may come off a bit. So stay in the moment here, enjoy it, but make sure you stick with what you're doing at this point of the race.
Love it. Let's jump to the next one we have coming in here. Avalo, how many nutrition pack energy gels does a runner need during a long run? James, what do you think about how much we should be taking during those long runs? I'm sure it's different for everyone, but would love to hear your insights.
Well, the general rule of thumb is to fuel between 60 and 90 grams of carbohydrates per hour, preferably 90 grams if you can tolerate that and if you've practiced it during training. Now, of course, you don't have to consume carbohydrate purely from gels. You can get it from drinks. What I would say is that the gels tend to provide a really easy format to follow. It's just very practically simple. And if you get into the habit of consuming, let's say it's the beta fuel gels, which are 40 grams of carbohydrates per pack, or if it's the isotonic gels, which are 20 grams, then in theory it's between 2 and 3 gels per hour. And then you just consume those every 20 minutes or every 30 minutes, depending on the version that you have. So I think no more than 3 gels per hour, and that will definitely hit your fueling targets. But as I said before, if you prefer drinks, then you need to mix and match so that you have drinks and gels. My experience of working with athletes is that the gels provide a super simple, practical solution to make sure that you hit your targets.
I love that. Really good answers. Let's jump to the next one. We have a question coming in from Lauren. Any tips to stay mentally strong in the last segment of the race when fatigued and discomfort sets in? Ben, what are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, I think Mary touched on it before. If you have one of those key workouts that went really, really well, that's something to look into. I tell runners to keep things positive. Uncomfortable. It's a marathon. If it was easy, everybody would do it, but it's not. But you're out there. So when fatigue and discomfort begin to set in, don't get trapped in the darkness. Don't fall into the areas where, this is not going well. Something has to feel good, and try to focus on what feels good. Some people like to give their miles up to family members or friends along the way. This next mile is for mom. This next mile is going to be for dad, whatever the case may be. But I tell runners to keep things positive. It is challenging. It is tough. Maybe start counting off, every block as you go. That's the beauty when you run in New York, that 100, then 101st, 102nd, whatever you have to do to kind of keep yourself in the moment, keep things going, keep moving forward. But before you know it, you'll be 10 blocks further from where you were a little while ago, and maybe things will change the mental side. But just try to keep things in perspective, keep things positive. A finish line awaits. A medal, a hug, a high five. It's all waiting for you when you get to Central Park.
Love it. All right, next one we have coming in here. So many questions today, guys, and these are great questions. We have Greg says, can I bring a family member with me to the expo? Greg, wonderful question. TBD, keep an eye on the NYC Marathon page. We'll update all the information about family, friends, what you can do and not do at the Mass No Max on their website. So please keep up on the information on the website. I don't want to say something now and it changes within 2 weeks because we know how that happens. So please just check the website. A great question, though. Next, we have Danny. How many more 20-mile long runs should I run? Ben, what are your thoughts on this?
I'm guessing you're preparing for New York. There's no rule of thumb of how many long runs you should do. Obviously, you probably have another key long run. Maybe you had one last week. Maybe you have a cutback for this week. I'm guessing probably the weekend after next. So I'll call it October 15th or 16th, if my dates are correct. Will be a long run time. Is it 20 miles? Is it 3 hours? Whatever you want to do. Some people like to have that 2 in front of them during their long runs as a mental thing. But at this point, I wouldn't do too much because, again, you don't want to be overtaxing the body. Recovery is as important as any long run that you're going to do as you prepare. But again, everyone's different. If you're using a coach, maybe chat with them. If you're using an online tool, if you haven't done a 20-mile long run to this point, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Again, your 3 weeks out should be your final long run and probably the longest of your training cycle before you begin to taper. So gear up for that one in about 10 days time and you should be good to go.
I do want to make a correction for Lance. Last question. You can bring your family and friends to the expo. It is official that the family and friends are allowed to come with you to the expo. So hope that clears that up, Greg. All right. Next one. Friends, is it true that from Saturday to Sunday night, it'll get really cold? Race night. And do you need to keep in mind the departure times of the bus starting line? I'll kind of jump this one, kind of logistic question here. So it does get kind of chilly. New York City in November is pretty chilly. Average temperature for race day is 54 degrees. Now that's high for the day, but perfect running weather. You want about 45 Fahrenheit on race day, which is average about what it is that morning of. Most people will dress in layers at the start line. And we do partner with Goodwill donations, so you can donate all of the clothes you do not want to carry with you at the start line, but we can't predict the weather right now a month out. Just keep an eye on the weather. And you can always talk to us at the expo as well. And then the second question you have, start bus, get there early, get there early for everything you do. 50,000 runners are doing the same thing you were doing on the first Sunday in November. So give yourself extra time with buses, with subways, with bathroom lines, it's lines, everything is a line. So just give yourself extra time to get in those sessions. All right, next one we have, Otto says, I'm signed up to take the 5:30 a.m. Midtown bus. Could I take a later bus so I can take Metro North into the city? My first train arrives at 6:30. Otto, when you get to the expo to get your bib, please visit the runner service booth. They will help you if there's availability on a later bus. So they'll make any changes for you, but you can't do that ahead of time. Next one. The traveling runner. Will the expo be open to the public? Yes, as a correction from the last one. Yes, it'll be open to the public. So bring your friends and family and buy some amazing New Balance gear and come visit us at the Running Lab. We'll be doing core strategies every hour on the hour. All right, we got a minute or two left. Let's see, what do we have coming in next? GC, running shorts or tights. Is there any reason why not to run wearing tights? Ben, let's jump over to you for this one. It might be our last one for the day.
Yeah, there's no reason to or to not. The key is, have you worn it before? Have you trained in it? If you've trained in it, you know what it's going to do in a race environment or a training environment, then it should be good to go. Obviously, as Steve mentioned earlier, we don't know what the weather's going to be like in 4 weeks' time. We could have an absolutely spot on day like we had a few years ago. We could have a rainy day. It's happened in the past before. The key right now is, if you have the opportunity to try things out in a training environment, I would say go ahead, so you know what you want to wear to have those in case you need them if Mother Nature throws us a curveball and we have a chillier than expected time.
All right, I have one last question I really wanted to get to. My clock says 12:59:53. Mary, this is coming to you from the traveling runner. How do I add videos to my Strava post? I do want to highlight this one because celebrating your marathon is very important for all those runners, and I want to make sure people know how to add the new feature that you mentioned, videos to their race results.
Absolutely. So just like you'd add a photo to your post, you click those three little buttons in the upper right-hand corner and you're going to edit activity and you're going to add media. If you don't currently see video available, I would encourage you to just run an update on the app, because everybody does have video now. So click those three little dots, add some great video. And once again, they are 30 seconds and we'd love to see them.
Awesome. Thank you to all of the panels today. James from SIS, Mary from Strava, Ben from Coaching. Guys, thank you so much for joining our chat today, sharing your expertise. Runners, thank you for all of your shout outs, questions from around the world. Virtual high five to, I think it was Amsterdam, might have been the farthest one today, but thank you guys. And we cannot wait to see you at the TCS New York City Marathon Expo and the finish line of the TCS New York City Marathon. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.